Welcome into another episode of the Lazy Bros podcast. We are your hosts, Logan Lazarchik and Luke Lazarchik today. It's a podcast where one of us had to save the other one today from bench press. I had to save Luke from bench press today. Unfortunately, I could not save the Chiefs from the dismantling that they went through on Sunday against the Eagles. It was one of the worst games I think I've watched, and as a Chiefs fan, I don't know, we did over under cheers that we had at our house while we were watching. I would, if I had to guess, I would put at 1.5.
I remember
I do remember the one cheer. The Brian Cook interception was probably that's the only cheer I really remember.
2 cheers, the stop and then the pick, and that was it.
Yeah, it was.
I think it was a 3 and out to start the game for them, right?
For the Eagles.
Yeah.
I thought that I don't think it was because they had, unless they had a short field and
I swore it back-to-back 3 and outs.
I know the first drive they had the A.J. Brown throw that got called back for OPI, and that was that would have been on the Chiefs.
So maybe it wasn't a.
But I do know the Chiefs punted. I don't know if it was or not.
It was.
I do think that. Yeah, I do think that they kind of drove down the field, but yeah, it was not an enjoyable experience at all. And I mean, we'll get into it pretty soon. Schematics of it all and all that. But yeah, it was flat out one of the worst games I've watched Mahomes and the Chiefs play in a long time, and it came in the worst spot imaginable in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was like all the close games didn't matter from throughout the whole season when you're like, oh, well, the Chiefs play close and they're going to, big game Super Bowl, perform well or at least not make mistakes. And then they made every possible mistake. I don't know if anyone played well. And the coaching was bad too. It's I understand that the run game, you don't trust it, but to just not hand it off at all, it's what are we doing? What are we doing? It's you got to hand it off some. I don't care if it's Kareem or Pacheco, but they got to get some carries. Or Xavier Worthy runs, anything. But you can't just – nah.
Yeah, and on the bottom of the screen, you can see the score is 40-22. If you didn't watch the game, if you, for whatever reason, didn't watch the game, and I don't blame you after halftime, this game was over by halftime, and really the score doesn't vindicate how much of a beatdown it was. It was 34-0 at one point. It was 40-6 at one point in the fourth quarter. All Chiefs production came in garbage time. But the Chiefs going into this game, it felt like they felt like their game plan against Buffalo was going to work against the Eagles. They opened the game exactly the same way they opened against the Bills, in the way that I think they threw every play the first drive and a half or so. RPO, quick throws, quick hitch routes. Mm-hmm. That's not going to work against this Eagles defense. And the Eagles defense really, their game plan is pretty simple. Rush 4, drop 7, and kind of force the Chiefs to attempt to run the ball. And the Chiefs didn't even do it. It was very reminiscent of the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers, where the Buccaneers did exactly the same thing. They rushed 4, got home, dropped 7, dared the Chiefs to throw underneath, to run the ball. And it was the same result. Mahomes, I thought, played better in the Tampa Bay game. I don't think.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think Mahomes was pretty solid in the Tampa Bay game. To be honest,
Tampa Bay game. When you look at stat lines, oh man, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. But I remember he ran a total of over 100 yards just escaping pressure. Not even 100 yards, but throughout the game, across the field and all that. But this is by far his worst game. I do think the Chiefs ultimately lost this game in the final 5 to 7 minutes in the second quarter with the pick 6. And the other pick that basically resulted in 7
Hopkins
points.
dropped that third down, which would have been 40 yards.
Yeah, it may have been a touchdown, to be honest with you, because there was nobody on that side.
He's slow. Someone's getting him.
But I think the Eagles defense, and I was watching a podcast earlier. It was Bryce Young was talking to John Gruden, and John Gruden asked him a question comparing the Chiefs defense to the Eagles defense. And he said the Chiefs defense is much more complex. The Eagles defense is very simple, but they know their assignments and they do it very well. And that's not a knock of saying, he was basically, I don't know verbatim what he was saying, but basically They rush 4 or whatever, or they rush 5 sometimes, and they basically play simple coverages. But they have the personnel to execute that plan soundly, and that's exactly what they did against the Chiefs in this one.
And Vic Fangio, when he has he's probably the best defensive coordinator at when he has great talent. He makes it work because I think he allows them just to do them. Like we've seen Fangio when the talent's been down. I think he just lets his players make the plays, and so he lets it be talent-based, which in this case is good. But, I mean, yeah, the Eagles' defense is stacked. Overall team is really good. They really showed the talent difference than the Chiefs. And, like, again, and then I'll turn it to the offensive side. Jalen Hurts, we had that big argument last podcast, and I feel kind of vindicated on you got to watch out for Jalen Hurts. He's good in big games. Ever since the national championship game where he was terrible and he got benched, good in the biggest games. And so, I mean, is Hurts a top 5 quarterback? No. But now it's like, now he gets even more leeway where like he's probably a top 10 guy for me. And I know he has a lot of help, but he's steady in the big moments and he still runs it as well. And him running for 70 yards ruined a bet of mine because I talked about the lock of Saquon most rushing yards, and then Mahomes threw that touchdown to Worthy, and I thought I hit this $5 bet to win some nice money, and I opened up the FanDuel app. It's like, forgot about that leg. So, I mean, for me, it's just an all-around game for the Eagles and just a disaster for the Chiefs. Not too complicated, pretty simple what happened, and just a beat down for the ages.
Yeah, and I have to take on the chin. I was wrong about Jalen Hurts in this one. I doubted him the whole playoffs. Now, it's nothing to take away from him because I do think he played a really good game, even when the pressure for Chiefs really didn't get home at all. But even when, there was a little bit of pressure, he would make plays with his legs. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to say I don't know what quarterback in those circumstances behind the Eagles offensive line and in that situation I don't know how many quarterbacks fail in that situation. I mean, the offensive line played great. Even the Chiefs rushed and blitzed, more than the front line. They still didn't get to Jalen Hurts. So I think Jalen Hurts, he played a really clean game. He made the throws that were there. I was very wrong about how I thought he would play. I mean, I was right about I thought Saquon would rush less than 109 yards, which was his line, and he did. I mean, if you told me before the game he rushed 25 times for 57 yards, I would have a pretty good feeling that the Chiefs would win that game. If that was the only stat line I knew going to the game, I would feel pretty good. But
that was shocking.
But I think the Chiefs kind of put all their eggs in stopping Saquon in the rushing attack, and that kind of opened up everything else for the Eagles attack. But yeah, I mean, Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, they both have faced scrutiny. Sirianni, a lot of people said, was on the hot seat entering the season after, they fell apart late last season and losing the first playoff game. But he wins the Super Bowl, beats the Chiefs. I really thought that, Jalen Hurts played better than Mahomes. Of course, the defense for the Eagles played better. I don't even think the Chiefs' defense even played that bad. I really think it was the Chiefs' offense that really lost this game for Kansas City. I do not believe it's defense. But like you said, I think the Chiefs' coaching was it was subpar to say the least. I think their game plan was terrible. They didn't adjust. We talked about last week, if their offensive line struggled, would they shift Joe Thuney back to left guard? I was kind of on the thought process that you don't do that. But after it clearly wasn't working, just try to put a left tackle in there. And because the thing is, when you slide Joe Thuney over, he's not a left tackle. So now your left tackle is still weaker than a typical left tackle situation. And then your left guard situation is weaker because you have a backup left guard in there. So you really have the left side line really weak. Juwan Taylor's not that good of a tackle. So you're really dependent on Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, who, once you're down to, 2 guys basically you can count on against 4 really good pass rushers, you're really not going to have a lot of success. And watching this game, it was exactly a carbon copy of the Tampa Bay game. It felt the exact same way.
No, it was. I mean, I think it felt a little different because I think Mahomes was worse, but I honestly think the Chiefs' O-line was better than the Tampa game. I think a lot of this was Mahomes, and even though Joe Thuney he was not great. It was just a disaster, and it's so weird as a Chiefs fan. You win these 3 super close Super Bowls, and then the other 2 you get whooped. I know the GOAT debate was talked. I don't think it needs to be done. I just think that Brady right now is a GOAT. and Mahomes has a lot to do for that. So I don't think that's a long conversation. He's still let him win a fourth, and then we can really start talking about it because Brady's Super Bowls are just better performances. But I mean, yeah, Mahomes that was bad. That was his worst performance, and I don't even put it on the O-line. I think he was pretty pedestrian. Like he caused some of his own problems. Gets a Super Bowl. You don't get to win every year, and you just move forward.
Yeah, you brought up the GOAT conversation. I do want to stick to that point because I've watched a lot of media coverage and all that, and some people are saying like the GOAT conversation is over. I don't think it's over. I do think you have to put a pin in it. You have to pause it right now. I truly don't think it's over because if you look at Brady was 3-2 in his first 5 Super Bowls. Now I understand the blowout losses and Brady beat Mahomes in the playoffs when they faced head to head, but he was 34 and had gone to 5 Super Bowls at that point. Mahomes is 29 and has gone to 5 Super Bowls with the same Super Bowl record.
Here's the thing,
and I know there's context with him, but I think now. I think Mahomes probably has to win at least 6, probably in 17, and try to say he's go.
The thing
I
is,
don't think he can win 5, and then I
Yeah.
think he has because Brady beat him head to head, preventing him
Twice.
from winning 2 Super Bowls. Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But also, here's the thing. Mahomes, I think, will go down as his number 2 quarterback of all time. I think he's basically already – it's wild. He's basically 2 or 3, depending if you're a Montana guy. But, I mean, didn't watch Montana, so we're going to be Mahomes guys over Montana. But just overall, my eyes have still always have told me that Brady's a GOAT. Just when I watch Brady, I think there's just another level. And plus, I don't think Mahomes is lasting till 45. I don't even know if he lasts till 40. So I think that makes it to where I know Brady was 3-2. So like when people are super criticizing Mahomes, I think
that's what I'm saying. I think the discourse on that it's gone overboard.
He's in the conversation with one man or maybe another, but one man really. And so that's why he's heavily criticized. So I get that to a certain extent, but it's a lot. But what Brady did post the age of like 35 is crazy. And I don't see Mahomes doing that, especially when you got Josh Allen on his heels, Lamar's on his heels. I would say Joe Burrow, but that Bengals organization is terrible. So if they ever fix it, or if he goes to another team in the AFC, then there's that. But so I don't envision that. Like, I think the over/under for like Chiefs Super Bowls with Mahomes remaining should be 1.5, and I'd probably take the under. I'd probably take one. I would predict one more Super Bowl.
You think Chiefs get one more Super Bowl? See, I would put the over/under at like
10 years. I mean, it's not like
Andy's
going to retire at some point. Like, let's say it's 5 years.
I would put the over/under at I would say 2.5, and I'd probably take the under. But for you to say Chiefs win, it's just hard for me to believe that the Chiefs only win one more Super Bowl.
Well, here's the thing.
And I know the AFC is much more loaded, and I know there's also young talent on the NFC side of things. Jane Daniels.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Jane Daniels. I didn't even mention Jane Daniels, but I think it's so much more. It's like, okay, Kelsey. We'll talk about Kelsey. We'll talk about the Chiefs' offseason plans, but really, the core of the superstars are gone, or not gone per se, but Kelsey's not that anymore. I think Chris Jones has 1 to 2 really elite years left. That's what I'd say, and I don't know if he gets signed after this contract. I think that'd be fine.
I think he's done after this contract. He'll be 34 or something, 35. He'll definitely be done.
I mean, I just don't see. There's just not the super. So now you got to rebuild, and that's completely possible. It goes back to my Bills point. Like all year, like you can rebuild quickly. But
we've also seen the Chiefs do.
No, but you have to be successful at it, and it's not going to be as easy. And it's just not going to be as easy. And Patriots didn't win for a decade, but then Brady had another 7 years left, and I don't know if Mahomes has his next 7 years. So I think saying the Chiefs are going to win 2 Super Bowls is a lot. Even like getting to 2 Super Bowls, I could see that, but winning 2 Super Bowls is a lot because I wouldn't pick them to win it all next year.
And we'll talk about the Chiefs offseason plans. This is like the first offseason where I feel like there's going to be major changes. And like I know like the Tyreek Hill trade, that was a major change. But you're trading you lost one player and you got a lot of draft picks in return. This offseason, and let's just shift over to that. Let's just shift over to that right now. We'll talk about Chiefs offseason plans. This season, Adam Schefter tweeted it. I forgot how many free agents on top of my head the Chiefs have, like number wise, but it's like double-digit free agents that they have.
I mean, I can list. It's Hopkins, but Justin Reed, Omenahu, Marquise Brown,
Trey Smith, Nick Bolton.
Trey Smith, Nick Bolton. I know he doesn't play time. And Mike Pennell, that's kind of Juju's one. I'm just going down the list. Najee Johnson, but that's kind of fine. Matt Ariza, you got to pay a punter. You got to decide on that. So, yeah, there's a good amount of free agents, small and big.
And Travis Kelce may retire. I mean, it's like this offseason is the first time where I'm like, crap, this isn't going to be a simple – I don't think it's a rebuild like you said. I don't know if you meant rebuild or like retool. I think it's a rebuild.
But I think the NFL is more of a retool league. That's my whole point with the Bills. Yeah, I meant retool. But we're going to have to retool. But – like with the I just wonder how many years Andy Reid has left. I just want to say that again because that's a big thing. But then, and that affects a lot. But I mean, Chiefs can have. I mean, I'm looking at it, and I think we kind of agree on this. Like, I think it's preferable, whichever word is right. Preferable that Travis Kelce does retire because you're saving $17.25 million in cap and.
Because right now the Chiefs only have $11 million in cap, and you also only have 6 draft picks.
I'm looking at over the cap.
Okay, so if 115,000. Okay, so I saw this last night because I was writing an article about the Chiefs, and I looked it up, and it said Chiefs have $11 million. I've heard multiple reports that the Chiefs have $11 million. I don't know if that's based on the fact of new money coming in, and they just haven't updated that. But I have heard like $11 million being thrown around. Here and there. So, but like the Chiefs don't, regardless, the Chiefs don't have a lot of cap space. They only have 6 draft picks at this point, and they may get some comp picks from the free agents that they lost last year, but that may only be like 2 7th-round comp picks. Like it's not going to be anything substantial. So Chiefs only have 6 draft picks. They do have 4 in the top 66, which I think is a big deal. So you can kind of have a top-heavy draft, kind of, boost up some of the positions. I do have a prediction. I'm going to predict the 4 players that I think are the main keys this offseason are Nick Bolton, Trey Smith, Justin Reed, and Travis Kelce. I laid out a prediction. So I think Kelce retires. I think Justin Reed walks in free agency because the Chiefs have shown the ability to draft and develop corners, defensive backs, especially late in the draft. They did that with Brian Cook. I think the Chiefs are going to re-sign Nick Bolton, and that may be a bit, optimistic, but I do think they get that done because he is the quarterback of that defense. He is the one that gets them organized. I do think they end up keeping him. And then I think to get more draft capital, I think the Chiefs are going to tag and trade Trey Smith, who is going to reset the market at the guard position. And I definitely think there are going to be teams that are certainly interested. Now, what the Chiefs get for Trey Smith, I don't know, maybe a 2nd or a 3rd and then a other late draft pick. But I do think that's how the Chiefs are going to have to, restock some draft capital is tagging and trading a player. And, I think they're going to act on that because they simply have to improve this roster. If they want to keep competing for Super Bowls, this is the route you're going to have to
go. I mean, that's a pretty good plan, I think. I think Trey Smith is gone. I think you're just going to have to let that one go because I think if you focus so much on the interior of the O-line, you're just never going to get those tackles figured out. And we've seen the Chiefs have struggled to draft tackles. They've drafted like 3 or 4, and they have all busted. And they've struggled to sign good tackles. Juwan Taylor, I think Juwan Taylor's honestly getting a little too much hate now. I honestly think it's getting a little over the top because I still think he's fine. He does have a lot of time.
I think for the fact that here's a
like, I'm just talking about as a player. I think he's a
no. But like the original, I don't know if you remember. But the original plan for Juwan Taylor when he signed the Chiefs was to play left tackle, which I think is just terrifying to even think about.
But that's not his fault. That's the Chiefs.
No, I know. But
evaluating him.
Yeah, of course. And I do think, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I do think they're basically stuck with Juwan Taylor for one more year. I would also make a prediction that maybe Kingsley Samatia plays right tackle he starts at right tackle at some point in 2025. That's kind of like a bold, maybe not bold, but I do think he could play because right tackle is much different than playing left tackle in the NFL.
I know, but I
right
think that Taylor's still a solid right tackle. He's just nothing special. Like when I was watching the game, I don't think it's Taylor who's getting.
No, I don't think so either. But he's also the most penalized player in the league. I don't know if you can call him solid. I do not think you can call him
I
solid.
still think like he usually is not allowing pressure. I do think his penalties are an issue, but I think take away the money, he's a solid player. I think everyone's looking at him in just in terms of the money. It's a bad contract, but that's not the discussion. But yeah, it just shows the tackle issue, and I really think this is going to go back to. I mean, the positive is Xavier Worthy is legit. First off, Chiefs need to throw the ball deep more. I don't know what they're doing. Just chuck the ball sometimes. Did not see that this year.
I was thinking about this, and I know he doesn't do the play calling. It's mostly Andy Reid, but Matt Nagy's been OC there for 2 years now, and the offense has taken a dip substantially since he's been there. Like the 3 years when the Chiefs returned to the Super Bowl after they traded Tyreek Hill, they had a pretty explosive offense. They led the league in scoring with Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling as the two top receivers to the team. And then Matt Nagy comes in, and it's really what's the offense? The offense has been bad the last 2 years. Now, they've got to two Super Bowls in that span, but watching the Chiefs offense has not been a good unit. And Matt Nagy, when he left the Chiefs to go to Chicago, he wasn't that, like play calling, he wasn't that good. And I know he's not the main play caller. I know it's Andy Reid, but there is something there when your offense coordinator is Matt Nagy and offense struggles as soon as he comes in. I do think there is something there with that.
I mean, yeah, that could be true. I mean, the personnel, though, wasn't as great, but that could very well be true. But I don't think he's going anywhere.
I don't think so. I think, like, for me, and I wrote a mock draft piece yesterday. So I think the Chiefs are going to get drafted left tackle first round regardless.
I don't think that's the right move. That's my bold opinion.
I see. Okay, no. I tend to agree with you on that. But I also think, one, I don't think you're going to be able to draft a left tackle in the second, third round. I do think maybe if you can sign a free, like there's Ronnie Stanley out there. If you could get him, he's a free agent. But I don't think that's happening. And it's just tough because when you draft a left tackle, I think, of course, that's the best case scenario if the Chiefs find a left tackle through the draft, because that means it's a cheap player for about 4 or 5 years, and they are a good blocker for Mahomes' blind side. So if they're able to draft and develop a left tackle through the draft, or like in that process, I do think that's best case scenario. I just don't think you're not going to get a generational guy because those are mostly at the top of the draft. But what position do you see him? What other position do you see them kind of drafting first round?
I like best player available type of stuff. That's how I am. I'm about getting a good player. I've always been of that belief, and I think you go tight end. Let's say for some reason Gentry's there. I'm still drafting Asher Gentry, even though he won't be there. But
I'm trying to be realistic. He's not going to.
I know, but I'm just throwing. I'm not done. You keep talking over me. But tight end, if Kelsey's retired and you don't want no Gray, then defense, you can go if there's really good safety. I still, even though Karlaftis does well, there's just the pass rush is not. It's just not killer in there. Or you can get someone next to Chris Jones. The tackles have not worked. Drafting tackles not worked for the Chiefs. So I don't want the thought just, we have to get a tackle. Look how that's gone. So it depends on who's available for me. But back to what I was saying, I think that the Chiefs offense is going to be more toward the earlier Mahomes years, because you're looking at Xavier Worthy, who I think has proven himself to be at least a good receiver. And that's been as the one for most half a year. Kelsey's not been doing great in the middle of the field, so it's not like you have that. Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, Juju out there next to you. And you're getting Rashee Rice back. And so I'm really thinking that the passing offense can be better, but I don't think the O-line's going to be as good. If you keep Nick Bolton, that's good, but I'm not sure about the defense because I just don't think Chris Jones is – I don't know if he's the best – like I used to think he's the best D lineman in all football. I think that's gone. Like I don't even know if he's like top 10-ish anymore. He probably still is, but
No,
it's
he's
just not
definitely
this.
top. He's
I don't
definitely
know,
top
but
10.
I don't know. I mean, I know sacks aren't everything, but he had like 4 or 5. It's like you just expect a little more. He's still fantastic, but he's just not like the game record where he's going to kill your game completely if you don't do something. He's just not on that. He's not on that same level anymore. He's fallen off a little bit. I mean, 5 sacks, and the year before 10.5. He's not at that 15.5 mark. They got a couple times. And so there's just concerns around that. But I think the offense is going to be passing-wise the best year since – I think Mahomes has a good shot at MVP. But I honestly have a better – I feel Mahomes MVP more than I feel Chiefs Super Bowl.
So the reason I don't see the Chiefs – and I'm with you. I do think edge rusher – I mean, we saw in the Super Bowl, you can never have enough edge rushers. You like rotating. But my feeling is the Chiefs have invested 2 first-round picks in 3 years on the edge rusher. Now, I know that doesn't mean, you should just pass on it, but I just don't see it cheap because I don't know how good of a player Felix Ndukwe-Uzama is. I wasn't a huge fan of the pick, but they clearly believed in him, clearly believe in the long-term plan there. So I do think their plan is to, let those 2 develop, especially Felix. That's why I think it's tough because the left tackle situation is such a dire need. And the 2 Super Bowls they've lost is because of the offensive line. Now, I know Mahomes played terrible this game, but I think the offensive line was the root of the problems in both of them. Definitely the Tampa Bay game, and I do believe in this one was the root of the problem. I do think edge rusher would be a smart move. And I do think, I hate forcing, like you said, forcing a pick at position of need just because you need it. Like, if there's a really good edge rusher there, and he's clearly a better, like, if the Chiefs view him as a way better prospect than whatever left tackle's there, I kind of lean that. It's tough because I just don't know. The Chiefs have a clear need at left tackle, and they have other needs as well. It's just tough. I don't know what direction they go, and I don't know. I guess, like you said, it kind of depends on how the board drops and kind of falls.
No, yeah, that's how I don't think it's a fantastic tackle draft. So maybe you have to go up there. I mean, you've traded up for Xavier Worthy and Trent McDuffie. If you want to tackle, maybe it's time you go trade up to pick 19 and I keep seeing.
But the problem is in those 2 drafts, especially the Trent McDuffie draft, they had a lot of other picks that they could afford to surrender. They only have 6 picks in this draft.
I mean, yeah, that's not
that. That's why I still.
You have higher picks though. You have higher picks, so maybe you can trade a second and then you get a 4th, and so you can consolidate those 2 second-round picks to move up in the first, but still get some other picks in return, so you're not dead in the water on picks. I've seen like Kelvin Banks fall in mock drafts. Obviously, mock drafts are mock drafts, but I've seen him fall. If you're telling me Kelvin Banks is falling, take a shot. That's how I feel in the first pick. Or if you don't love anyone, trade back. Trade back into the second round. Then you have 3 second-round picks, and you added 2 more. And so I don't think the Chiefs should say we have to do this or that with the draft. And obviously the offseason the free agency will determine stuff as well, but I think you got to stay flexible on what you're going to do. And with free agency, again, I think Kelsey retiring would be the best thing for Chiefs, in my opinion. I think you got to kind of switch eras a little. And I think that would be a defining moment to switch.
There's 2 left tackles that kind of pop up in my head that could be there in the first round. There's Josh Simmons out of Ohio State, and I believe he dealt with injuries for the most part this past season, so that's why he's not really higher up the board because he was one of the best left tackles last season in the nation, but he dealt injuries this year. And then the Minnesota left tackle, this is a very hard name to pronounce, Ariante Irseri. He's actually he's from Kansas City, so I do think that could be a legitimate fit if he is a good enough prospect for that position.
Last time we drafted someone for Kansas City, it's Felix and Uzama.
Yeah, but I do think this left tackle from Minnesota is a much better prospect than Ndukwe-Uzama. Because Ndukwe-Uzama was from Kansas City and he went to K-State, so it was that really felt like a hometown pick when they made that pick.
I mean, it's not like Uzama wasn't I didn't like the pick, and I obviously covered K-State and stuff. And I just thought He's a little raw, but I mean, he had 15 and a half sacks or something. Like, he was really good. So I'm not going to be. I don't know much about the tackles so far. I don't watch tackle film. So I'm at this point where I'm just like, I kind of trust the Chiefs. Like, everyone was
I
mad.
am too. I'm not. Like, I don't
Everyone
think
was
it's
mad
doom and
about
gloom.
Xavier Worthy last year, and I was like, that's not what I wanted, but I'm gonna trust the Chiefs. And guess what? It worked, and he was really good. I felt like I was one of the more positive people. Whereas, like, what do I know? Like, you know what? They have an idea. I'm trusting them there, and he's becoming a pretty good player. So
Yeah, and go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if they draft tackle, I'm gonna trust it, but I'm not gonna act like I have this profound knowledge of the left tackle position in college football.
Yeah, and like you said, I think next year the Chiefs are going to have the best receiving core that they've had, or at least top two guys since Tyreek Hill, since they traded Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy. You know, the Rashee Rice, I don't know what like the whole off the field suspension. I don't know how
That's
that's going
something
to
I
pan
keep
out.
forgetting about.
I don't think it's going to be a lengthy suspension. I don't think it's going to be like 8 to 10 games. I do think it's going to fall in the 3 to 4 game category. We kind of saw Kamara. You know, it took a year and a half to really, find a solution to that problem. And I think he was suspended 2 or 3 games, if I'm remembering correctly. So I don't think this is going to be a lengthy suspension. He may miss the first handful of games, 3 to 4 games. But once he's back with Xavier Worthy, I mean, the Rashee Rice injury was unfortunate, and it was even more unfortunate due to the fact that Mahomes was the one that ended up inadvertently hurting him and ending the season. But it did allow Xavier Worthy's role in the offense to expand, and it kind of accelerated his development at the same time. So, you never want to see a player get hurt, especially one that was having a true breakout season up to that point. But like you said, I think next year the Chiefs are going to have a pretty good receiving core. I do think they have to figure out the running game. Left tackle and running game are probably the two main issues.
Yeah, the running game. I think it's time for. I mean, Pacheco's still, I think, an okay running back, but he's no superstar. Mm-hmm. It's a really good running back draft. So honestly, what I'm hoping for, I know people like to wait on running backs, but I think we've seen these higher guys lately do really well. So I'm not saying first round because I feel like it's a draft where
you can wait a little bit. It's a very good
first round. Marion Hampton from North Carolina.
Travion Henderson from Ohio State.
Judkins,
Caleb Johnson from Iowa.
I still like Judkins. I think he kind of got under the radar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's good too.
But so I'm probably not saying first round, but let's say Chiefs trade back, like pick 31 to pick 41, and you get a second, and then you get a third. If you tell me one of those second round picks are a running back, I'm happy. Whether that's Hampton or Henderson or Judkins or Johnson or I don't even know where Scadabo is going to go, but he's just fun. So
Scadabo seems like he seems like the same kind of prototype as Pacheco a little bit, and I do think he's a better player than Pacheco. He's better, but they are the same kind of both 5'11", both 215.
I mean, the difference Scadabo, I've seen that dude catch deep balls. I see him throw the balls.
No, he's a much better.
I just think that dude's an overall gamer and athlete that is different.
Yeah.
So I'm looking day 2 running back for Chiefs. That's what I'm personally looking at. And I know that in all the dynasty drafts, I feel like that it'd be interesting if Genty gets taken. What's a team that would just suck to get drafted by, but it's possible.
Wait, for Genty?
Yeah. I don't know.
Let's say
the Steelers for whatever reason they don't sign Najee and it's him and Warren. Steelers, and then so Genty's a Steeler, and then you have Amari Hampton's a Chief. That'd be funny to see who.
Genty would still go over.
I know, but I wonder if stuff like the Marvin Harrison thing.
Here's the thing, though. People, and this is a kind of a different side conversation, but people who played Dynasty fantasy football, they've already learned. Clyde Edwards-Helaire went to the Chiefs, and people were taking him one-on-one in Dynasty drafts.
That's fair. Yeah, you're right.
He got taken over Jonathan Taylor, over J.K. Dobbins too. J.K. Dobbins, if it wasn't for the injuries, I think would be a really good running back in this.
Oh
league.
yeah,
I still think he's a solid player. But yeah, Jonathan Taylor went behind Clyde Edwards in a dynasty league that we were in. I believe Clyde Edwards-Helaire went one.
No, you're right. Okay, you're right. But
So yeah, I
back
don't
to
think it's just I know there's fits with better, but like talent always wins over, especially in those type of
yeah, you're
leagues.
right. And
So
we drafted AJ Brown, and he was with the Titans, and that worked out. So yeah, you're right. You're right.
yeah, but yeah, I do think that, and like the Chiefs this year, they really missed like a true third down back in their offense. They had Jerry McKinnon the last couple of years, and they really didn't have that in their offense this year. So Mahomes really was. I mean, it would have been nice to have McKinnon in the Super Bowl or a player of that type in the Super Bowl where Mahomes could feel like he is checking down the flat to him. I just don't think Mahomes really. I don't think he really trusts the running backs catching the ball in the backfield, and we kind of saw that throughout the year. I mean, there'd be times where they were open, and he wouldn't really trust them. So I do think Chiefs should like Devin Neal. I think would be a good. I think he fits that mold a little bit, but I know you'd have to wait to take him, and I don't know if I don't think you should take two running backs in the same draft. I do think if you took Devin Neal, if you're the Chiefs, you'd probably end up taking two running backs in some kind of draft. But yeah, the main problems for me are left tackle, running back, and I think you need an edge rusher that can kind of create their own opportunities, not
Yes.
just depends so much on Chris Jones kind of eating up double and triple teams to open up passing or pass rushing lanes. So I like there's Mike Green from Marshall. I do think he's gonna shoot up draft boards. He was a player that was kind of under the radar. I think he had like 16 and a half sacks or something this year at Marshall.
Yeah, I was listening to Joel Klatt's mock draft, and he had him going to the Lions in the first round.
Yeah, so I do think that would be a type of player I would like we said, if there's a left tackle there, but he's just not that good, but he's available, but there's a really good pass rusher, I do think the Chiefs should go. The Chiefs have to invest in the trenches, I think, heavily in this draft. Like I wouldn't mind taking two offensive linemen and a D tackle, or two offensive linemen and a pass rusher or edge rusher. I think they have to, and teams are now going to copy what the Eagles did, and like Tampa Bay when they did what they did. They're going to try to win in the trenches on both sides. Offensive line, defensive line. That's what won this game was the offensive line, defensive line for the Eagles. Really,
the Bills have a ton of draft picks. Wouldn't be surprised if they load up on defensive pass rushers, interior D linemen. I could see teams like them doing that. I don't really know the draft pick situation with Baltimore. That's why That's why I want to look at more. I want to look at which teams have how many picks. Because I know Buffalo has 2 seconds, so they're in an interesting spot. And I feel like you're going to see a lot of the Chiefs' competitors D line, pass rush. I feel like that's going to be a lot. So you're going to see, like, as I said, Baltimore, Buffalo, Chargers. I could see, especially Chargers, because
Chargers I believe they have the third most cap space.
And they may be getting rid of Bosa and Mac, or Mac's definitely gone, and they may get rid of Bosa.
I actually think Bosa's definitely gone of the two.
But I think Mac's becoming a free agent.
Mac's a free agent, but Bosa you can save I think you can save close to $20 million by cutting him. And I don't know the exact number on my head, but they already have like $66 million, and that's before the new money, I believe. The new money in league year, and then if they cut, they could have close to like $90 million in cap. If they wanted to. So yeah, I think the Chiefs, I still view them as a top competitor in the AFC clearly, but it's gonna be a much harder road. And I know these next 2 years Mahomes' cap number really goes up, so it's gonna be hard to build. So like I said, this offseason for the Chiefs, they've been in similar spots before, but they had much more flexibility and much more certainty at certain positions. Now it's really, they really have to dig hard to really build maintain the Super Bowl roster.
Yeah, one of the most important off seasons for the Mahomes era coming up.
Yep. Let's shift over to the Eagles side, and I don't think their off season is clearly not as complicated as the Chiefs. They have their core pieces there. They've drafted really well. They pay a lot of players, but at the same time they've drafted so well. You have Jalen Carter, who still has 3 years left on his rookie deal. You have Cooper DeJean, Quinion Mitchell. They are just rookies. They'll be sophomores next year. So you really have your core defensive players on cheap contracts for the next 3-4 years. So they don't really have to worry about that. Most of their money is on the offensive side of the ball. You pay Jalen Hurts. You're paying offensive linemen. You paid Devontae Smith. You paid A.J. Brown. You signed Saquon. I think with this core of players, I think they have a pretty good runway. I do think it's a weak draft. I do think the Eagles are going to make a push for Myles Garrett, and I do think not just for the fact that it's a great pass rusher, but when I look at Myles Garrett's fits, it's mostly on the NFC side of things. So Commanders, Lions, I think that's why it even makes more sense for the Eagles to make a push for a player of Myles Garrett's caliber to keep him away from other teams.
I mean, that's an interesting thought. I don't think they'll end up with Myles Garrett. I honestly think they kind of need their picks this year because they're free agents. They low-key have some free agents. Zach Bond, he's first team.
He's all pro this year.
Yeah. Mekhi Becton. I don't know if you're keeping Becton. That's like such a weird one. I have no idea if teams are like,
they develop so well on offensive line. I don't think they'll keep him.
But like, I wonder how much he's offered. Josh Sweat. He's a free agent. Milton Williams was really good this year. I think he's one of PFF's best players. He's an agent. They have a couple corners they have the third corner. That's not a big deal. Fred Johnson, the right guard, played 41% of snaps. I mean, that's not the biggest deal in the world, but he still was. Brandon Graham's gone, probably retiring.
He's retiring. Yeah.
Kenneth Gainwell, do you keep him as a nice backup? I would like to keep Kenneth Gainwell.
I think. Well, okay, they drafted Will Shipley, and I don't think he's that good. I don't know how good he is, but they drafted him last year.
He played well when he played. He does well when he played.
It's a loaded running back draft class. I think Gainwell will be elsewhere in 2025.
If the Chiefs, that's someone like, let's say Chiefs draft, let's say Hampton or Judkins, sign Gainwell as the RB2.
I would love Trevion Henderson. But I still know or Caleb Johnson from Iowa. I think those two.
No, yeah, I like him too. I really like Gainwell. So I think if he's your second, or I guess you'd kind of abandon Pacheco at that point. But I like Gainwell. I've always liked Gainwell.
I do think Pacheco's going to play. I think he'll be like one more year, and then he'll be gone after next year's his last year on his rookie deal. He'll be gone after next year for sure.
I mean, we'll see what happens, but I like Gainwell. Yeah, I was just going to look at Will Shipley's stats.
I mean, didn't he have like 30
carries
title game
in the regular season? 30 carries for 82 yards. So that's not a great number, but I bet a lot of that, just stuff in line. But yeah, he had a 57-yard run title game. So we'll see what they do there. But they do have some upfront free agents. So Fred Johnson, Becton, Sweat, Milton Williams, Zach Bond. So I think that's interesting. Like, are the Eagles clear favorites in NFC? I think they're the favorite. I don't think clear. I'm not of that mindset. I still really like the Lions. You got the Vikings. I mean, they may get picks for Sam Darnold. They can do so much. They may get a comp
who
pick
do you
for
view
Jalen
as
Jones.
if you have Eagles as a favorite, which I believe you do have as a favorite. I don't know, maybe you don't. But like who do you view as that team that would push them the hardest for that spot?
Lions are my NFC team. I'm not wavering on that. Some stuff went wrong. If they were healthy, everyone talks about the coordinators leaving as if their whole defense wasn't massacred. I mean, they lost everyone. The players they signed Jamal Adams. They signed Jamal Adams, and he started the week they signed him. They were massacred, and I think that I just trust. I mean, Aaron Glenn, he's pretty good, but we don't know how insanely great he is. And then Ben Johnson is probably the star, but I still think that playing times we judge, like, Ben Johnson comes up with great plays, but his, like, big-time decisions were really, like, just the play calls themselves, not going for it, because that's probably more Dan
situationally, it was not
the play calls were bad. So I don't think their coordinator situation – as bad as everyone says. They brought in the passing game coordinator from Denver, I believe, to be their new OC. Someone under Sean Payton, and Sean Payton's one of the best offensive minds, like we did with Bo Nix. So I'm still saying Lions. They got massacred this year. And I think MCDC is a fantastic coach.
A counter argument for your point is, like, I think the Eagles last year, I think were a prime example. They lost both their coordinators, and I know they started the year 10-1, but I know the coordinators they brought in were really bad, but I do think losing both the coordinators is a big deal. I don't think they fall completely off. I still, right now, would lean towards them winning that division. But, like, for me, I think if they got Myles Garrett, the Lions,
Yeah, that's insane.
I think pairing him with Aiden Hutchinson, I think I would have to have them. I would be more in line with your opinion if they got like a Myles Garrett. But like if the Commanders got Myles Garrett, they have a bunch. I think they're the second most cap space this offseason. You have a quarterback on a rookie deal who's going to be a superstar. Right now, I'm teetering between the Commanders and the Lions as the top.
Are we talking about next year or like next 5 years?
Next year. Next year.
I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm not going to put Commanders there yet. I feel like we always do this with teams. Space. We always say, "Oh, look what they're about to do. Look what the Bears did." I like the Commanders, but I'm not going to put them above. They can't go above the Eagles, and they can't go above the Lions for me. And I'd still put like the Vikings ahead of them. Man, the Vikings. I mean, they could go trade Sam Darnold and get a comp pick for Daniel Jones because the thought is he'll sign at least somewhere for like $10 million. And they got young pieces that I like. So Commanders are. I mean, they could prove me wrong. I know that, but I just wouldn't throw them there yet. I need to see a second season.
Yeah, and I know we like sophomore slumps. I'm not saying Jane Daniels is going to fall into that category, but like last year, everybody, praised CJ Stroud as a superstar quarterback, and then he took a step back. And I don't think CJ Stroud's going to be a bad quarterback by any means, but he did struggle this year. So I understand where you're coming from there. I think Commanders. I mean, division rival. It's weird. The NFC East, like I don't know if you bet on divisions as much as I do, like before the years start. But every year I take into account that the NFC East has not had a repeat champion in 20 plus years, and so like just thinking that along those lines, if it wasn't the Eagles winning because I'd be back-to-back titles, I would probably lean the Commanders winning next year. If it keeps this trend.
I think that argument is generally, I do not agree with 20 years in a row. Like I think it's going to get broken. It's just one of the weirdest things ever. But
I know, but I've heard you say that.
There's a good argument this next year because Washington could be really good. So I don't hate Washington this year. I don't take into consideration
I put it in my formula because it's been 20 plus years of that, and I put it into my formula.
I know, but
I bet the NFC East the last 3 years, or last 3 years I've gotten it right. Well, I didn't get it right because I didn't follow that train of thought when the Cowboys won, but nonetheless, it did happen. So that's what I'm saying.
The Eagles should have won the division last year, and they fell apart.
No, I know they cost me money. I would have won a lot of money.
And that was just insane. That was insane what happened. So if it goes 30 years and there's 2 more instances where this team has it locked in like that, and then they fall apart, then sue me. But I mean, I still think the Eagles. I think them and Lions. For me, I'd have them as co-favorites for next year. And in the next 5 years, I would probably say Washington because they got the quarterback. But next year, I think Eagles and Lions are right there. And then I like Minnesota. Green Bay.
Minnesota's interesting because I think their roster is very good. And we'll see what but I don't know if JJ McCarthy's going to walk right in and have the Vikings as a top competitor. And I know Sam Darnold played really well. With in this system, but I also think at the same time, and I know the Chiefs fall into this category that they won a lot of one possession games this year. So you can call me a hypocrite or say why aren't you using this in this scenario? But the Vikings won a lot of one possession games this year, and last time they did that was with Kirk Cousins when they went 13-4, and the following year they fell off. And I'm not saying they're going to be a 5-12 team or something, but they're not going to win all those close games again. So Minnesota, I'm hesitant to. Minnesota, I'm just hesitant to put into the top competitor category.
I really like Minnesota.
My top 3 teams right now for next year in NFC would probably be, in no order, just saying, would probably be Eagles, Lions, and Commanders because of Jane Daniels and the amount of money that they have to spend. That probably be my top 3.
And then I still think all depends on Christian McCaffrey because I think he's that important. But the Niners are still shot in the dark. We've seen them fall and then get right back up instantly. So I'm gonna keep them in the back of my mind as someone who can go do something. I wouldn't expect them to be a top contender, but I know that they are capable when you have a great head coach and a great GM who are aggressive. I think it's all about being aggressive. I think that you gotta be aggressive in this league. You can't be wimps, but you can't be stupid.
The 49ers have been aggressive and they didn't.
No, yeah, but they twice they were right there, and they
No,
fell.
but my point is, I'm not saying it's a wrong thing, but
Just
my
because
point
you're
is,
aggressive and you didn't win a Super Bowl doesn't mean your aggressiveness wasn't right. The moves they did
no.
were right. They just lost
Making
close
that argument.
games.
I'm not making that argument. I'm saying you can't just be aggressive forever.
Yeah, I think you can be aggressive forever. Be aggressive. That's how you win stuff. You can be smart and aggressive. Aggressive doesn't mean that you trade for a star every year. Aggressive just means you see what you want and you go get it. You don't sit back and be lazy like the Cowboys or the Bengals, who now had Jermaine Pratt wants to get traded. They're such
it's crazy. They've had 3 players in the last 2 years request a trade.
3 of their like top 10 players. They're a mess.
Yeah.
They're a mess. That's why I feel I can never consider the Bengals a contender anymore because of the organization, not because of Burrow. But no, be aggressive. And I mean, being aggressive can be many things. It's just look at the Eagles. The Chiefs are aggressive. The Eagles are aggressive. The Niners
when I say
are aggressive,
I get what you're saying. But I also think
the
San Francisco
Bills were aggressive. And now I think the Bills need to go all in.
They were able to overspend on players because they had a quarterback on cheap deal. If they pay Purdy, good luck. In my opinion, if they pay Purdy, it's the end. I don't see them doing anything. If they pay Purdy, especially anything close to what the number is.
If they make the right moves, I think look at the Bills. They cut everyone and they just drafted some okay players and worked. I don't think that's how it works.
Wait, so do you have Commanders or 49ers higher on?
I'd have Commanders higher, but I think Niners. They're lurking because they've done it before. And they also had everything go wrong for them last year. And they lost the dumbest games. So they are still lurking. And with my aggressive thing, it's like Green Bay, they can be one of the contenders. But I think there's no organization.
No, that's the team I'm fine being aggressive.
I think there's no organization that needs to be more aggressive this offseason than the Packers. I would go full pursuit. Because I think Jordan Love's good enough. I do think he's good enough. Jalen Hurts was, Jordan Love is. Love's played big in some big games. They got to go star hunting. That's where I'm at with them.
Would you go after T. Higgins if you were them?
I'd prefer
Cup. Or is that too?
I'd go Garrett first. And I think because they have some cap and then you can make some – I think they can maneuver some stuff. I'd go Garrett and Cup. Rams keep some money. You go for both.
Are you saying Myles Garrett or Garrett Wilson?
Myles Garrett. Garrett Wilson's not going to leave.
Okay.
I'm going Myles Garrett.
Who knows?
You don't need 2 receivers.
He may request a trade. Who knows?
Rodgers left. I think that was his thing.
But there's also a report that he may request because of the constant turnover at quarterback.
I know, but I don't think he'll request it at least now. I think the season. But if I'm them, I straight up go for Cup and Garrett. I'd go all in. And yeah, I'm all about organizations being aggressive, but not stupid like the Bears and the Texans where win aggressive, but you win aggressive where you didn't need to.
Or like the Jaguars a couple years ago when they had a lot of money, they just threw it everywhere.
Oh yeah, they spent that terribly.
Yeah, they overspent for Christian Kirk, and I think they signed a few other they signed one of the Griffin twins.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like
Shaquille and the Jaguars. Yeah. If you have in the Packers, I mean, they're not like the perfectly run organization, but they do a lot of stuff.
They're a very well run organization though. Very organized. They always
go get a top 5 player in the league. If I'm them, I'm like all in on and if I'm Washington, so many teams should be all in on Myles Garrett.
No, and that's exactly why I was bringing up the point about Eagles going after him was because if you look at all the fits for Myles Garrett, and there's some on the AFC side, but most of them are on the NFC side. Like if you talk about fits and who makes sense, Washington, Detroit, you bring up Green Bay.
I think
Buffalo could.
If Bills had the cap space, I think because they have Bills have a good amount of picks, but I don't think they have a ton of cap space. What is their cap space like?
The thing is, Bills aren't paying anybody outside Josh Allen and I guess Von Miller a little bit. They're really not paying anybody. You're not paying any of your skill position players. Like James Cook is up for he's eligible for a contract extension.
I mean, you're paying Von Miller, you're paying Ed Oliver, you're paying Deion Dawkins, you're paying
Milano. What's Von Miller like? What is his? Can they get out of that contract at all, or is it kind of?
You save $8 million. I don't know if that's worth it.
Of what? Out of what?
23.
So you eat. Yeah, it doesn't even seem like it's worth it.
Okay, their Dawson Knox contract sucks.
Didn't they get in that last offseason? Like, didn't they? I swear They signed
Yeah,
him
it was
last
like
offseason.
it's not too. Yeah, because he has.
And they don't even use Kincaid correctly. I didn't understand that sign.
They can cut him after next year. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing with that.
But that's my point. It's they're
They
what
have,
other
but they
AFC
have,
team?
but they have a lot of their main core. Like they're not losing many
Yeah, but like
players. So,
what other AFC team outside the Bills would make sense to you?
I think Ravens.
I mean, I guess
probably
to be
not.
honest, I guess
Chargers.
Chargers. I was gonna say Chargers. I think that's a dark horse one right there. If they want to be really aggressive,
Cut Bosa. Yeah,
cut
but I
Bosa
still
and
say
replace him Garrett.
If Bills can get the cap space for it, and we see teams finagle cap space all the time. If they can, because they're keeping a lot of their main core, and like a lot of just like $9 million, $8 million, $7 million deals. $5 million.
What's Garrett's cap hit? If you want to look at that real quick, I don't think he's being paid like a ridiculous. It's definitely a high number, of course, because he's one of the best defensive players in the league and one of the best players in the league. But I don't think it's like it's not going to be comparable to what Micah Parsons
19, but
see, yeah, and like Nick Bosa's making 35, 33.
The thing is, I wonder. I'm not cap wizard because the Browns lose $16 million, along with because his cap hit for a trade is $36 million, so it goes up by $16 million. So I wonder if you have to somehow.
So the Browns will be accounting for $16 million of that. Is that what you're saying?
No, when they make the trade, his cap number goes from 19 to 36. It increases.
Okay.
Talk about a team who's screwed.
Well, you can thank for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, that was.
And then they were dumb and pushed, and then they made his money.
Yeah, that was the dumbest thing. It's like when you made the trade, I was like, even take away the offseason stuff. It's like you went for it and were aggressive, but then you went ultra stupid.
Well, no, but this offseason was like they pushed money forward to then make them, but they didn't make any moves with that money this year.
No, yeah, I literally remember seeing that. Like, they're about to
doing that.
I remember seeing that, like, they're about to make a big move.
No, we thought that because Brandon Ayuk was.
Oh yes, Ayuk.
We thought he was going to get Ayuk, but they did nothing. So all you did was screw yourself even more the next 2 years, and you didn't make any moves for this season.
Oh yeah, I think they're in the tank. I think they're just trying to get through these next 2 years with Deshaun's number being hellacious.
I think we're gonna do a mock draft once because I forgot when the combine is, but I do think we should do a mock draft here in about 2-3 weeks. Draft season kind of starts heating up around then. If I'm the Browns, I mean, none of these quarterbacks really move me. I would trade Myles Garrett and take Abdul Carter if I could. Like them and Tennessee are in the same boat for me. Both of them I think should take, and I think Tennessee is in a great spot. I think you should trade back and just take Abdul Carter the second or third pick and give from the Browns or the Giants. But like I don't. I mean, Cleveland's going to take a quarterback because their GM and Kevin Stefanski may be fighting for their jobs this season. But I guess if you trade Myles Garrett, I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah,
I don't know. You're definitely just in the tank. So
I don't know what they're doing, but
yeah. Anything else before we move on from today's episode and kind of shift our focus to next week? And next week we'll probably do some NBA talk, some college basketball talk. March Madness is also quickly approaching, and we're at the All-Star break at NBA.
No, I think we're good.
Yep. All right. Well, that will do it for our episode this week. Like I said, we'll probably do a mock draft here in the next 2-3 weeks. We'll see how things kind of play out. NFL Combine, new NFL league years approaching. But yeah, we have other sports to talk about. So until then, make sure to subscribe to the channel and follow us on YouTube. Leave comments below. And we also post our episodes on Spotify, so you can give a listen on there as well. But until then, we'll see you guys.
Peace.